Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here, welcoming you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. Bring it on. So very happy to have you here for a brief discussion about a film that got a lot of hate earlier this year, and I have been self-quarantined, hanging at home for the last month or so, and what better to do than to see if Dolittle is as terrible as a lot of people were making it out to be. This was a head scratcher to begin with because following, the MCU's like 10+ year journey to, Endgame and all that other stuff, everyone was like, well, what else is Robert Downey gonna do, Well, apparently he wanted to do Dolittle, and this was done previously, various times at this particular point, but the most recent adaptation before this was with none other than Eddie Murphy. It was fun. I mean, it wasn't terrific or anything like that. It wasn't as bad as Daddy Daycare or I don't know, so many of those other weird films he was doing in the 90s and 2000s and stuff like that. But still, I mean, hey, it was fun, nice stuff for kids, whatever. But yeah, so Robert Downey Jr., big name, A-lister at this particular point after all the Iron Man stuff. And so lots of other talent jumped on board for this film. I mean, first and foremost, you had a director that, well, not exactly like as celebrated recently. I think the last movie dude directed was Gold with McConaughey, but this is the same guy who wrote Traffic. He wrote and directed Syriana, which is another terrific film. So this was a director with kind of an esteemed pedigree, with stuff on camera and then behind the scenes and television, various different things, television, film, and yet, despite that, and despite Danny Elfman's score, despite people voicing all of these CGI animals that included Rami Malek, Academy Award winner in his own right, Camille Nanjiani, you've got Selena Gomez, you've got Emma Thompson, you've got so much, John Cena for whatever reason, you've got so many pieces in place for this film, and yet this film it's not as bad. And I guess the burden of expectation, or the lack thereof, can work, both ways in that particular regard. But this is definitely not a good movie. It's not the type of, awesome event film that you would think. And I would imagine the studio realized that that was the case, and which is why they dumped it in January, January and February have, for decades been the dumping ground for just projects that didn't really pan out the way people had thought that they would. Times have changed. I mean, if the right movie comes out in January or February, like a Deadpool or a Get Out or something like that, it can make very good money if it's a very good movie, and this is not. Now, I will say, though, that it does hit in the feels a little bit more than I was expecting, because this particular incarnation of Dr. Dolittle, who can speak to animals, that's the gimmick behind this story, going all the way back to the book that, I'm trying to remember if it was 1800s or early 1900s or whatever, but yeah, the guy can talk to animals. That's really the only thing that you need to know in this regard, and the way that they frame it up here, at least, is they make it back to being period specific. It's like, different England, from what I gauge, late 1800s, like right around the turn of the century perhaps. I don't know if they ever mention a year specifically in the film as I was watching it, but really of no importance. It's a period piece, that's what's to keep in mind. Proper English being spoke by everyone, including Dolittle himself. But so the crux of feels that I wasn't anticipating is the fact that he's in hiding with his animals because of the fact that his wife, the love of his life, who had this same just, let's aid and help and just care for animals as opposed to, mistreatment, exploitation, all this different stuff, just wanting to help, a bunny hugger, as my father, who is like an adamant hunter, would probably say. But nonetheless, his wife was in that same just very humanitarian mentality as him, and she goes off on a mission to sea by herself of investigation, and she dies, and it's incredibly tragic. And it does actually, the film starts out better than I was anticipating, because you get that right away. So right off the bat, you get this backstory as to why Dolittle is not really in contact with a lot of people. He prefers interactions with animals, and that's that. But then, as Dolittle goes on this mission to try to help discover. He's basically off to try to discover this herb, if I remember correctly, that's gonna, this like ancient, almost like Garden of Eden type herb that's gonna help save the Queen of England. And the Queen of England is actually played by the same lady from Wild Rose, and she just keeps popping up in things. I adore Wild Rose, very talented actress in this regard, but she's just lying in a bed most of the time, doesn't really, you know, she's ailing and on the verge of, she's on her deathbed, so to speak, and so she doesn't really get a lot to do in this movie. But, I mean, and then you've also got, oh boy, the name of the actor is eluding me, Lil Huey, who's been in tons of different things, including the zombie movies and World's End, and boy, it's in, I'm gonna get slogged in the comments from this, but I'm not gonna go and double check. He is this villainous guy who is basically going against Doolittle and trying to thwart him from actually finding this thing, because there are people that want the Queen to actually die. Perhaps maybe they were even part of a poisoning that could have set these events into motion. And yeah, I mean, it just really, it boils down to the silly antics on this journey of Downey and this kid that he takes under his wing as they go on this adventure with all of their animals, trying to find this thing that can heal the Queen. And it's just not funny, and yet it's trying to be. And the strange clash of this film is the fact that, yes, it's this whole period piece thing, but the dialogue from all of this, from this tremendously talented voice cast of people that I already railed off, everybody involved, the jokes are like modern jokes, and it just doesn't fit. It's almost got like a Your Highness kind of vibe, although Your Highness I actually really enjoy. This movie I did not enjoy. But once again, not as terrible as a lot of people are making it out to be. But yeah, when like the polar bear is saying bro and stuff like that, and just talking like it's modern, you know, 2020 day and age, when this film was, you know, finally dumped on audiences before we all found ourselves in self-quarantine and all this different stuff. It's such a weird just clash and contrast and stuff. And a lot of that humor does not fit and does not hit and just does not work. And yes, there is indeed a scene of something going up a big dragon's ass, and the strange teamwork, making the dream work aspect. I've heard many people mention it. I had to see it to believe it. And that was where, just for a novelty of the ridiculousness of this movie and just trying to figure out what the hell the production team behind this, when they were crafting this script more so than anything. Because I will give credit that the digitized animals, because they're all digitized, at least from what I could tell, they all look very convincing. It's not like Lion King levels of CGI or anything like that, but then again, I mean, that set a precedent even if the movie wasn't particularly good. So yeah, all of these digitized animals, they look solid. Downey has instances of charm here and there, and I enjoy him a lot as an actor, even in these hammier roles, and so I was okay with it. He's not particularly bad. There's two younger kids in this, these two younger British kids, I assume, and they're not terrible either, but the mustache twirling villain that we get in this, and then just the whole structuring of, you know, just the plot against the Queen and all this different stuff, it's not a good movie, you know, in any way, shape, and form. And so yeah, I was I didn't laugh when I was supposed to. I laughed probably when I wasn't supposed to, and yet was just more taken aback by the outrageousness of the talent assembled, the product that we got afterwards, despite all of this savvy, you know, that was attached, and, you know, and the fact that Downey even got involved in this project in the first place. You read the script, man. You saw these weird jokes with the animals, the history, everything that is in this weird bit of wackiness. I can't recommend this movie, you know, but if you just have a strange curiosity, like I personally did, and you have the time, I mean, I don't think it's streaming anywhere just yet unless you want to VOD it, but don't you dare VOD at full cost this movie. If you're okay with no touch at Redbox, you know, and less than $2 to, you know, spend an evening and waste 100 minutes of your time, 90 minutes of your time, an hour and a half, whatever the hell it is. Hey, boldly go, be brave, see what all the fuss is about, both of a good and a bad regards. It's really just more amusing for its ridiculousness and the fact that they actually forged forward with this project. Oh, man, a lot of people got swindled, a lot of great talent got on board, and maybe they just didn't really know what they were getting themselves involved with. But now I know, and knowing is half the battle. And yeah, I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs. Yeah, Doolittle is definitely a Malo film. It's a bad film. I can't go as far as saying it's feo. It's not ugly. There's an almost so bad it's tolerable sort of vibe to some of the proceedings here, and yeah, I guess that's really the only thing that I will give this film. So I've been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find more on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just like you see spelled below. Yeah, typically on this channel I cover films that I like, but there is the occasional dud. Yeah, you get the dud, like on that Simpsons episode. But yes, this is my more geektastic outlet for usually stuff like, you know, bigger budget comic book films, Star Wars stuff, things of that nature. I do also veer into the territory of indie dramas, comedy, more serious films, Oscar contenders, and things of that nature. But if you know me from the spectacular stuff, in case you don't, youtube.com/The Horror Show channel is where myself, along with Cecil Laird, Susie von Slotta, Marsha Parker, and Robert Duell, and occasionally a couple other people that you know, jump in here and there. Back when we were actually able to congregate, we do trailer reactions, we do reviews of films, television, novels, comic books. I do a weekly Stephen King show. There's also unboxings, makeup tutorials, the occasional comedy sketch, commentaries, lots of cool stuff, and we yeah, we try to be as comprehensive as possible with the scarific coverage. But yeah, guys, that's going to be the end of the proceedings for today. Apologies that it was not at least about a more amusing film, but yeah, snitches get stitches. Like, I don't know what this film was thinking, man. It's a definite oddity. But hey, that's going to be it for today. So until the Reel of Caw comes around once more, I say hasta luego, cinemigos, constant readers and viewers alike. But I'm hopeful that we get to share more of this palaver, hopefully in a more positive manner, sooner rather than later. And until then, stay safe and watch more movies.